It's Tuesday morning on February the 13th, 2018, and it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm just checking out of the Premier Inn Hotel just off Stansted Airport, but I'm heading on a very special trip. Fast forward 5 hours, a 700-kilometre flight, and adapting to Central European time, I've landed at my destination, Norway's Oslo Airport. Even with having seen several feet of snow on one side of the runway when we landed, it hasn't fazed me from this journey. With a population of over 630,000, the Norwegian capital city was recently presented with the European Green Capital Award for 2019, combining its rich heritage of museums and green spaces. It's also a country that is truly embracing alternative technologies regarding road cars. In 2017, 50% of all new car sales were electrified in some way, shape or form. This has further been augmented through major assistance via incentives provided by the Norwegian government. So if you see quite a few Teslas or BMW i3s or even hybrids on the roads, it's normal. Norway also hosted the 1994 Winter Olympics in Lillehammer, with the Scandinavian nation currently being one of the most successful nations in winter sports over recent times. It even has its own currency, just like us in the United Kingdom. We have the pound, Norway has the krona. However, it's not that cheap over here. Take this as an example. A 500 milliliter bottle of Coca-Cola Classic. What do you think that costs here? Some people might say, I can go to my local newsagent and buy it for £1. But here in Norway, that won't get you anywhere. Try 30 krona. 3 times that. And then there's alcohol. Don't get me started. That's another discussion altogether. However, just 4 hours and 220 kilometres northeast of the nation's capital, I arrive at my destination and resting place for the next 3 nights. And no, I'm not going skiing. after the nice scenic ride from Oslo Central Station on Norway's NSB railway network, I'm at a ski resort called Geilo. But when the name is sometimes pronounced by the uninitiated, it sounds rather familiar to the very well-known, high-profile Latina pop star, who will very much remain nameless. But as I said earlier, I'm not here to hit the slopes, especially with two bad knees. I'm here to get behind the wheel, and yes, it is on the ice. Scandinavia has a plethora of racing talent. Take, for instance, first of all, Sweden's Mattias Ekström, a two-time DTM champion and 2016 World RX champion. Then you've got the man they simply call Mr. Le Mans, Tom Christensen from Denmark, 9-time winner at the South and also a World Endurance champion. Finland, Valtteri Bottas from Mercedes-AMG Petronas Motorsport. Iceland, nothing really does spring up to mind. But two names from Norway really are on my radar quite significantly, one of which is a multi-time world champion in both rallying and rallycross. So let's introduce the first name I'm going to say. Simply one word says it all: Hollywood. Norway's very own Petter Solberg. Then you've got the man that has moved from Hoonigan Racing to EKS Audi Sport, the very funny and appealing Andreas Bakkerud. Now, both drivers in 2018 will each represent one of the Volkswagen Automotive Group marques in the 2018 World Rallycross Championship getting underway shortly. But in Dagali, I'm effectively in their backyard. Now, the slopes aren't that far away from the Vestala resort where I'm staying, but I'm heading out a further half hour by car to head to the Dagali airfield, which effectively for 4 months of the year becomes an ice lake. Ice Driver itself is a family-run operation with husband and wife team Andy and Alison McKenna crossing the T's and dotting the I's to make sure the show runs smoothly, along with a great crew to back them up. The McKenna dynasty is further extended with sons Scott, who's racing this year, and also Ben, who's just 13. You've also seen that this love of the ice brings the McKenna family back year on year. So I spoke to Andy to find out about the humble beginnings of Ice Driver. Just give us a brief background on Ice Driver itself, because I understand this is the 12th year you guys have been driving on the ice, not just here in Norway, but I understand you guys also were doing some work with Petter Solberg in Sweden as well. Just tell us a bit more about how Ice Driver came to be.
I grew up driving pretty much on a new surface, and I always thought it was a great way to learn. It was a more delicate feel required. I'm trying to say, driving quick on tarmac on any circuit is good, but you get to a certain point and a certain limit where if it starts to go wrong, the car's travelling quickly and you're going off. Excuse me. So, getting onto an unsealed surface like a lake, things happen slower. But it's all the same things that happen on this surface as would happen on asphalt. So I went out and I worked for somebody else, years ago. And I went there and I thought it was a great concept. I thought it was really, really good. But I also felt that you needed to give people seat time. People that come a long way. They've been in airplanes, they've been on trains, or they've driven in a hire car. When you get there, you need that seat time. So I started off in the north of Sweden, and that was good, but it was quite a long way to get to us. So it was 2 flights and train journeys and all the rest of it. And a lot of our clients are a bit restricted on how much time they've actually got available to them. We then moved and operated with Petter at his place, and that was good, but we couldn't rely fully on really good cold weather, which was obviously quite important to ice driving because you need thick ice. So we tried that for 3 years there. We had one really good season there, then we had a season where we struggled with the temperatures. It was a little bit too mild, and one of the first questions we asked is how thick the ice is. How thick is it? So we always try and operate on 35 to 40 centimetres which is thick. You know, that will support all my cars and the tractor that we used to blow the lake. But the weather wasn't good there the following year, so we decided to move, and we came from Sweden into Norway. Where we are now, it's a bespoke centre for this. So we've got all the infrastructure around it, we've got a building that we operate from, we do all our briefings in here, we feed all the guests like yourself in here, so you come back in here on a lunchtime, you're warm, you can have some warm food, and you get back out on the ice. We also have 4 different tracks here. Now, what I do differently, I think, to a lot of other people, is I'm not trying to sell you the car. So it's different to a manufacturer thing in that respect. I don't prepare a certain type of rally car that I'm trying to promote that. We're all about the actual driving time. So we run a front wheel drive car with a Focus, with a group end Focus, a great car. So we get a lot of junior drivers who drive that, and nobody's getting into junior rallying. We run predominantly BMWs. Great little car, great chassis, all of the cars, and a 6-cylinder car because it's quite torquey. And we also have a Porsche 911, 1979 911 for a bit of a classic feel. That car's on torsion bars. It's great. Everything you're getting is slightly different, so the learning curve's quite steep. But you will hopefully, over the course of anything from 1 day to 3 days, be able to take all these different things on board and adapt. We run a Continental ice tyre. It's a road tyre with a bead stud, but it's surprising the amount of grip compared to just a normal winter tyre. These are really good. We can also alternate from those to a competition tyre. So there's lots of different things that we can factor in that will help you learn over the time that you're with us, with the focus being on weight transfer, vision, vehicle dynamics, and just understanding how the car actually works rather than just pressing pedals and turning a wheel. This is about actually manipulating the car to make it do what you want it to do, rather than turning the car slides, you catch it. Yeah? Which is where most people start from, that's that starting point. So the more time you spend in a car with us, the more you realise you're not just going to come to a corner, turn the wheel, car slides, and you catch it. You will manipulate, you will dictate what it does, how it does it, where you place the car. And I think from a learning perspective and what you get back out of it, there's nothing else on earth like it. You can go through a forest and do an experience with that, and that's great. But when it goes wrong, there's some big wooden things to hit, and that's not good. On here, we can vary the width of the track. We have some tracks that are very wide, so you can really get the feel for sliding that car through. We have some that are a little bit more narrow, that require to be a bit more precise and get the rotation just right. But it's different things to different people. Whether you come as in, I just want to drive a car on a frozen lake because I've seen it done, fancy that, box ticked, or if you're a GT driver or a touring car driver, it's more than just an experience. But everybody comes, everybody takes something away from it differently.
Now, the McKenna clan is very strong in racing circles, especially with Scott, who I work with now, now going into Janetta GT5s, but of course we've also got young Ben who's here with us. Must be very nice. It's very nice to see Ben yesterday when we were here, getting out in the M3 on on one of the other tracks that we were on. It's really helped Scott in his racing career because he came out in the Janetta Juniors and literally impressed everybody, but a lot of the times we saw that the adverse conditions, it just shows how much Ice Driver can provide a new dynamic to someone's driving skills back home in the UK. So the minute the snow hits, they'll be prepared a bit more, even if they're in a front or rear wheel drive car, or even maybe say like an Audi Quattro for instance. I mean, it shows how much of a dynamic you can learn from this, from steering input to throttle manipulation, that kind of thing. What would you say is probably the biggest thing that Ice Driver does, apart from, like you say, having the cars set up the way you guys want it, but how you set the cars up to have that steep learning curve in terms of like negative camber, toe in, toe out, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we try to make everything's amplified on the surface, so what may be a little bit of oversteer, normally felt, there has been a lot of oversteer. We've left one of our BMWs with all the stability control on, so you can turn that, or it isn't on all the time, but it's switchable, so we can turn it 50% of the way off or completely off. Because nowadays a lot of people become very dependent on driver aids. You know, I'm quite old now. When I passed my test, there was no such thing. So it's interesting to get people in who never turn that off, or they know it's there, but they never turn it off. You know, they drive their BMW at home or whatever it is. A lot of stability systems work in a similar fashion. Throttles, wheel speed sensors, and the steering angle sensor. So it's interesting to turn that off 50% of the way to feel the difference, then turn it all the way off, then feel what happens with that. Our Ford Focus runs quite a lot of twelve at the rear, quite a lot of negative camber. We've made that car quite oversteering. If you put the wrong inputs in, it'll still understeer. The car will still push on. So all the things that you will feel when you're driving are exactly the same as it will be on tarmac, at a slow speed, and a lot more pronounced. So if you've got a car that has lift off, obviously you come to the corner, you brake, you turn and you lift off. With the car on tarmac, you might get a little wag. With this, it's going to be coming around on you. The car's going to get that rotation. So it's just, it puts everything under a magnifying glass and makes it 10 times bigger. So you can see it, you can feel it.
One driver that has recently joined the instructor team for the 2018 Ice Driver season is British Touring Car Championship driver Jake Hill, who's running with Team Hard Brisky Racing this season. 2018 marks the 60th anniversary of the Dunlop MSA British Touring Car Championship, with the 24-year-old now going into his third season with Tony Gillam's outfit. But of course, he's out here to have fun, just like the rest of us. So I spoke with Jake to find out what he brings to Ice Driver and what he can take back with him to the British Touring Car Championship in terms of skill set.
So Jake, we're here in Dagali in Norway, and you're part of the Ice Driver instructor crew from this year. Just tell us about how you got to come on board with the team, with Alison and Andy, and how has it been for you out here on the ice?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's such a great experience, and it's something so different. But yeah, I got it through coaching Scott, Andy and Alison's son, who races in the Genettas.
Yep.
And yeah, me and Scott get on really well, and Andy said, come and do some time out in Norway. So that was it, basically. Came out, and what a fantastic experience. It's definitely, I can take so much away from it to my own racing when we go back.
Yeah, because it's not too far away from you with your third season with Team Hard Brisky Racing.
Yeah.
Of course, you'll have plenty of time to talk about that on Media Day, but in terms of what you're able to bring from your experience in racing in the BTCC, how is that parlayed onto instructing people on the ice?
It's just so different. The ice is very different. Obviously, at home, I'm an instructor and a driver coach. For lots of different clients and people racing, lots of different things, and obviously driving myself. So, yeah, it's a lot of it is transferable in some ways. The way you teach people and instruct is very similar, but obviously what you're teaching is very different. So, it's good. I take more away from it personally for driving. It's great. It really sharpens all the senses up, and makes you feel what's going on a lot more underneath you, which is great. But then from a teaching point of view, which is what I'm out here doing, it's great. Everything's slower, but it's very unique. Your driving style is very different out here. So doing all that sort of stuff it's brilliant.
Granted, my roles in motorsport range from commentating, presenting, PR, and even videos now, but it's time for that moment to be upon me. I'm now going to be put through my paces here on the ice in Dagali. I've kept my mind as clear and as open as possible, but now it's the moment of truth. There's no going back. I've got to go out there, start learning a new skill set, and enjoy the moments as they come. Whilst I'm being bolted up in the seat, it feels rather real all of a sudden. The months leading up to this moment have been nothing but sheer excitement. Nevertheless, the adrenaline is taking over. It's time for the talking to stop and for my limber hands and feet to do the talking. So, as you can see, I'm sort of having a bit of a laugh with Jake Hill as I've just stalled the E46 BMW six-cylinder compact that I'm in, as we're now into the afternoon, the first day of training here at Dagali with the Ice Driver crew. At Ice Driver, it's about the skill of the individual, not the machinery that's under them. The car itself is fully prepared to rally spec, so all modern creature comforts such as air conditioning, satellite navigation and even heated leather seats are gone. The car has a diagonal multi-point roll cage installed, with myself sitting on a Cobra racing seat, and a 6-point multi-point harness provided by Cobra as well. I've also got an Alcantara steering wheel, which is providing me with the necessary grip to control the vehicle through steering input. Also, my foot is completely off the clutch as we are currently in second gear, and that is where we will remain for the duration of this particular stint. Now, as you can see, I'm feverishly using a very different technique to what I would do in my road car. My hands are normally on the wheel from 10 to 3, but then when we go into a sideways drift, when I turn in after lifting off, the car will then kick the tail end out, breaking the traction on the rear mounted road studded tyres with competition style tyres on the front, providing that bite, so at least the front end can be pointed inward and the rear end can break traction. Also, modulation of the throttle is key to keeping a successful ice drift under control, with the steering having a notable impact in association with said throttle positioning. Whilst this, I'm also having a chat with Alan, my instructor, through the two-way communications system that is employed by Ice Driver through the Pelter racing helmets that they provide. I'm also wearing a balaclava provided by Ice Driver, and I'm also wearing my prescription sunglasses due to the glare. And as I say that, I've gone into another spin. Not just my first of the day, but there's been multiple already before this point. Now it's a case of keeping myself composed and getting the car back out onto the track itself. Now, because I haven't kept the revs high enough to around 2000 RPM, the car has cut out. Not once, not twice, but by the end of this, it will be 3 times. So we now rejoin the track itself very shortly as I restart the engine for the 3rd time, get the car into gear, put the car into reverse, then it's full right hand lock down into 1st gear, put the car immediately into 2nd, and then I start making my way towards the main straight. However, Alan points out to me that the M3 has also gone into a tailspin, so under his recommendation, I stop the vehicle.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's not as easy as you think. Come out here to Norway, come to Ice Driver and get the real Nordic experience.
So now we move into the second part of the afternoon's running, and this time I switched from the E46 3 Series Compact to the M3 Evo engine compact. Now this car is a 3-door yet again, same creature comforts as I had in the E46, but a slightly different and hopefully more compliant ride in what is a 340 brake horsepower ice driving monster. The M3 itself has been set up to be a more softer, compliant ride than the E46, which feels a little bit harsher when you're going over ruts and trying to make sure that you don't put yourself around like a sardine in a tin can. We're now in the second part of the track, which is the more technical, more challenging section, where you're encouraged to turn in as far as you dare, put the nose end in, lift off the throttle, and then apply the power in modulation to enable the car to break rear end traction. But in the M3, I was finding it a lot more difficult than the E46, which was the first car I drove on the ice. And when we were out this morning on track 3 with the slalom, I unfortunately rearranged the front bumper of Ice Driver's Ford Focus, which later on was repaired back to a satisfactory standard, albeit without any wrapping. And as you can see in the M3, I was also having my fair share of problems having a spin at the second half of turn 1. So I get the car restarted and do a full 180 back onto the track itself. So back onto the lines that are being shown up through the competition and road-going tyres on the M3 and also the E46 with Alistair McLeod, the resident ice driver photographer, having been around for the last day and a half, gets his chance to finally get behind the wheel, with me being the other person out on track. So again, we've come down the back straight, a little bit of a wider approach into the first right-hander in this second technical section. Again, I'm still finding it a lot more difficult than the E46 to put the M3 sideways. Another couple of corners later, a bit more of a better effort there as we go towards the final turn. And yet it's more of a circuit variation that I seem to have done on that particular time as we head back into turn 1. This time I take a slightly wider entry into the corner, pull the car in, get the tail end wagging out slightly, and again on the last part of that particular corner before we up the pace down the back straight, the cones on the left hand side were just to keep us off that area, as the ice lake is a living, breathing thing and can change on a moment's notice, especially with atmospheric conditions. We now go into this right-hand corner, which again I'm still struggling with in the M3, but I managed to get the car a bit more sideways on that particular occasion, and into the next right-hander we go. It's more of an aggressive turn-in. This time I get the car a little bit more out in terms of angle on the rear end of the car, and we come through, and yet again on the same run, another spin. But to Andy's surprise, I keep the engine running and manage to get myself back out on track, giving the engine plenty of revs but making sure I don't exceed 5,000 RPM due to the M3 Evo engine being a very rare beast indeed.
Right, well, end of day 1 here in Dagali Motorsport Park, and we've just been on the bigger track. I was put in the training pool earlier on this morning. Wow, it's a whole different skill set, and the amount of concentration, the amount of you have to be relaxed to do this. I came here excited, filled with adrenaline, but I managed to calm myself on the journey here. So, as the last run of the day is going on, we've got to be off here by 4. But truth be told, I'm so glad I made the trip, because in the E46, on my last run, I basically drifted every corner. And that's something of real achievement in just probably an hour's worth of ice driving. But you have to take regular breaks, you have to keep yourself hydrated, because concentration is key. But if you drive too much on the ice, your concentration goes. So day 1 is over. Now we head back to the complex, and then it'll be time to go back to the hotel. Definitely go to the spa, because I think my forearms are killing me. And just look at the scenery. Just look at the scenery. I mean, you can't think of a better place. And we've had a little bit of snow today, but we really like the ice, because we are with Ice Driver after all. Speechless. There we go.
The charming and cosy Vestala Resort in Yalo will appeal to both the singletons like myself, but also entire families that are going to the nearby ski slopes. It's got beautiful interior decor with modern day and also traditional Norwegian flair combined as a whole, thanks to the efforts of interior architect Helene Henny. And also, it's a great place to chill out, with rooms ranging from single apartments to luxury rooms in a comfortable lodge setting. The surroundings are tranquil and peaceful, all at the same time. Facilities at the Vestala Resort include art, bowling, a fairy tale water park. There's even golf courses in the summer, group activities, a playland for the children, but also the chance to take in some great comfort through the spa, which also has a lovely swimming pool. And if you want to work out in the evenings or early mornings, you can take advantage of the modern day fitness centre, which has cardiovascular equipment, resistance equipment, and also free weights. What a place to spend my nights, dining on some fantastic breakfasts, and in the evenings, some great 3-course meals, making sure that my stay in Norway was more than just comfortable. After a nice rest and sleep, well earned I might add, at the Vestla Resort in Yailo, we headed back to Dagali for the second and final day of ice driver training. As you can see, the weather conditions had slightly deteriorated, with lower lying fog coming into play at the top part of the mountains and the surrounding hills, with a bit of a breeze throwing up the snow in our general direction. Nevertheless, we still managed to head back to track 3, which this time we would drive in reverse.
Okay, we're back at track 3 where I started, and we've just gone the other way around. I've just done 2 runs in, the E46 is just moving now. And I've just stepped in a lot, look, that is my footprint. Speechless. And I'm improving all the time. Of course, the snow is still sort of drifting along, so we have to use the windscreen wipers on the odd occasion, but conditions are looking like they might be deteriorating. There's still quite a lot of low-lying fog, especially around the mountains just behind me there, and one of the people behind me is one half of the husband and wife team that run Ice Driver, Alice and McKenna. And I've been getting so much feedback from Andy, and I've just used it really, really well, and I'm shocked. Can't wait until the afternoon. Right, it's just 10 to 2 in the afternoon. Snow is still falling here in Dagali, and it's now time for my final runs on the ice. And they brought the pair of the E46 compacts with us, both straight 6s, great linear delivery of power. So now's time to put all those skills into practice and really go and enjoy myself for the final time here in Norway. I'll give you my thoughts after we've done the final couple of runs with some onboards to give you guys an insight of what it's like behind the wheel, and also from a front-facing perspective, so you can see what the car's actually doing.
Sitting with Alex here in the BMW Compact. She's purpose built, triangulated cage, studded tyres, limited slip diff, and a lower ratio gearbox, and it's proving very well on the frozen lake we've got here in Dagali in Norway. And Alex has proven to be a true ice driver in just 2 days. The drifts we've had, it's been a pleasure to sit next to him to instruct, but what I can see, I see the difference sitting here from the start to the finish. So I see you at the start, I can encourage you to move on, I can help you, give you tips, but you've got control of that wheel. Yeah, and it's an absolute pleasure to be an ice driver here in Dagali. We've met some characters. We've met Jonathan behind, who's part of the MSA and the TCR with racing in the UK this year. It's been a good learning curve for him. But yeah, it's quite bizarre being on a frozen lake to instruct, because it changes almost.
It's all atmospheric. It's like we've had the near whiteout we suffered. We had earlier on when we were doing the last run.
If you approach it with the right attitude, everybody gets it. There's nothing worse. He wasn't slowing down. I don't even know if he's seen us.
That foot was severe. It was definitely planted.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? There's no let up there. Well, they'll be going nice and steady anyway, there's no rush.
Well, it's just hit 6 o'clock in the evening here in Dagali in Norway, and I'm back in my hotel room. I have to honestly say that this experience with Ice Driver will live with me for a lifetime. I've had 2 incredible days at the Dagali Motorsport Park, about half an hour's drive from here, and I couldn't be happier. The smile on my face, it just says it all. I've learnt a new skill set, and I've learnt an appreciation of how much it takes to drive sideways on the ice. And my progression over the last 2 days, I was even shocked. Okay, of course, yeah, I'm still aching my biceps and triceps and my forearms. I can feel the lactic acid. I can feel it slightly in the top part of my back as well. But I know that I've worked at it. And that's the great thing, because you only get out what you put into it, and that was very much case in point here today. So a change of footwear enabled me to modulate the throttle that little bit better, and I have to say, so I got some really great advice from Andy McKenna, because he told me like it was. He just said, look, if you're let's say for example your accelerator pedals like a volume on a speaker, 0 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. You're at a 6, you need to be at a 4. So I knew that I had to not go like an idiot on the throttle. But when it was all said and done, ta-da! I have a certificate of achievement that I have successfully completed an Ice Driver challenge, Ice Driver experience in Norway. And I love the fact that it's no frills, no mess, no fuss at Ice Driver. That's the big thing. No. It's no airs, no graces, no frills, no fuss, and it's about the drivers behind the wheel. That's the key point here. When you consider that racing drivers such as Sir Chris Hoy, Andy Prio, MBE, and you also had the other year, Alexandra Legui and Louise Goodman here on the ice here in Norway. And I tell you what, I understand how much fun it was
spinning up the rear wheels and putting it sideways, but you did it at your own pace. If you felt comfortable, great. Of course, along the way I've had some spins. I've damaged the front bumper on a Focus. Sorry, Jake. Yes, it was me. I'm the Focus bumper killer, if anyone asks next week. But I'd like to thank the entire Ice Driver team for their hospitality and the banter and the instruction of how to become an ice driver. So first off, of course, I've also already mentioned Alison. I'd like to thank her husband Andy and son Ben McKenna as well. Jake Hill from the British Touring Car Championship. Good to see you, buddy. Good luck this year. Also Sue, Jack, Sam, Tony, Alan and Andy Davies, especially the latter. Had some good banter in that car, didn't we, mate? Now, there is one question that does need to be answered, doesn't it? I'm not going to tell you the question, but I'm going to give you the answer. Yes, I'd be back in a heartbeat. And today is a significant day. Reference one racing driver that is no longer with us. Because in 1944, 74 years ago, a Swedish driver was born. And he was tragically taken before his time. He raced in Formula One, and he also, along the way, raced for BMW Motorsport. And that man is affectionately known simply as the Super Swede. Of course, I'm talking about Ronnie Peterson. But when I saw all the ice driver cars side by side in uniform livery that represented the helmet colours of Ronnie, the blue and yellow of Sweden, it instantly put a smile on my face. I was grinning like a Cheshire cat from ear to ear. So tomorrow morning, I check out of the Vesta Resort here in Yalo and start my journey home, back to normality, back to my own bed after what's been a fantastic time. I can't wait until I come back here to do it all again. Thanks for watching. And in here it's rubber.
Okay,
So now I know how
both cars handle. Hopefully, I should have more of an understanding of getting round these flaming corners.
That was the yokes.
Yeah, I could go one better. Shut that flaming door. And this is from a southerner. Oh, they're letting us go for one more. Okay, let's do a full lap commentator style on this one. Right, wide apex entry in, lift off, a little bit of dab of throttle, let the rear end kick out. Working that steering wheel as hard as I can, trying to make sure the car doesn't spin. Now it's applying the power. Down the back straight we go. Conditions out here are very treacherous, and the fact we've had near whiteouts here in Norway, and we've still got snow falling, but it's still not stopping the action here on the ice. So slow progressive brake, turn into the corner, lift off, then apply the power. The car will start to tail the end out from the back end, and then it's a chance of catching the slide, using good use of the hands, but actually keeping yourself very limber. Slight progressive brake again, going into the corner, lift off, turn in, little bit of power, let it go sideways, let it react accordingly to the other corner, and then through the and that was a full sideways moment there, going through the final corner as we now come to the end of our run.